Pisa Tower used to be angled more than 4 degrees.
Meters of soil from under the tower's north end. Then, they temporarily counterbalanced the structure with 600 tons of lead ingots before anchoring the base with steel cables. More than 6 centuries after its construction, the tower was finally straightened to a tilt of about 4 degrees. No one wanted the tower to fall, but they also didn't want to lose the landmark's most famous feature.
So do you remember how in DNA there are some specific structures like A, T, G, C? A goes with T, G goes with C. They are called histones, and there are different types of histones. For example, lysine and arginine. And those histones help the cell to know which part of the genome to read. So basically a controller for the cell.
Major findings was that there were different kinds of histones. Some had a lot of the amino acid lysine in them, and others had a mix of lysine and another amino acid called arginine. And this turned out to be a big deal. Since then, researchers have discovered that histones with these amino acids are important for helping the cell figure out which parts of the genome to read. When the body needs a certain protein that's encoded by that section of DNA bound to a histone, another protein comes along and modifies an arginine or lysine with a specific molecule. It's kind of like adding a tag onto a certain part of the genome that says, hey, it's time to read this gene because we need this protein ASAP. This process is foundational for how your body works.
I also saw a weed eater tournament. In this tournament they choose the best wheat eater line. If you're curious, it's pretty nice.
Oh! That was orange!
There it is.
That was orange! Look at
that.
that chunk!
Okay, so I didn't know this. There are some exercises called Kegel that helps with erectile dysfunction and lasting longer. Might as well do it.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to guide you through proven Kegel exercises that will help you have and maintain an erection and last longer by delaying ejaculation.
So this guy thinks global warming is a lie because of the fact that if it was real, nobody would invest in countries or cities that are at sea level or below sea level, such as Netherlands or London. So you wouldn't be able to get a loan in Netherlands, or like you wouldn't be able to get 30 years of mortgage, because if global warming is real, the sea levels are gonna rise and that part of the city is gone. All of your investment gone. Okay, so that's what this guy says, right? The thing is, first of all, we didn't really know about this global warming, sea level rising, and we didn't believe in it before. So nowadays there's more belief. Second thing is, as far as I can tell, the real estate investors around me are considering this. They are considering the location with relation to the sea level rises and the new weather conditions. So these are considered nowadays. On top of that, I'm a little bit tilted because of this guy, because they didn't allow me to use the clip. First of all, this guy said Bitcoin is gonna go zero. Bitcoin didn't go zero, will not go zero, at least for a while.
It is my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me. Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
One day.
In a microsecond. Whoop, like that. 99.999% of the people that own Bitcoin are fucking morons. Retarded, imbeciles. That's just it. Some of you in this room fall into that category.
So that's that. And the guy apparently made all of his money from oil companies. Surprise, surprise. Oil rich guy saying global warming is not real. Good, good. He also got fired from his job with the movement from the shareholders. But for some reason, after going to the court, he got paid 3.3 million. I don't remember, but I don't think Elon Musk got paid after he got kicked out of his company. Same thing applies to Steve Jobs. And in this case, he didn't even build the company. So I'm just saying, this guy is rich, but some richness are not deserved. In the formation of the waves, the landmark of the ocean plays a big role.
Seafloor doesn't always slope gently, and its shape is what makes or breaks a break.
big underwater geological features like reefs can get in a wave's way and compress its energy. All that energy gets abruptly funneled up into a shallow channel, something like a 4-lane highway's worth of traffic being forced to suddenly merge into one lane. But while cars can use their brakes to slow down and dissipate their excess energy, waves can't, and the resulting pileup bursts over the barrier in huge, dramatic wave breaks.
You know how there are conservation rules, like energy, you can destroy or create energy, or momentum. So there are many other conservation rules, and one of them is conservation of spin. And this is also a really good video that explains the standard model of particle physics. So if you're curious, I would definitely suggest this video.
Basically, there are a bunch of rules about how particles can interact with each other. These are known as the conservation laws of particle physics. And they say that there are certain quantities, like spin, that you can't create or destroy in a particle interaction. The same amount of spin going into a reaction needs to come out at the other end.
There's a part from Avatar that I really liked. I also have another part that I really like, which I'll share maybe in the future.
Not now, Tenzin. I just want to be left alone.
But you called me here.
Aang.
You have finally connected with your spiritual self.
How?
When we hit our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change.
This pasta is called Farfal Saginus. So you know how our mitochondria were basically a cell and then they started working together? There's also a suggestion that our nucleuses were a virus at some point.
It's even been suggested that the nucleus in our cells may have started as a virus that invaded some ancestral nucleus-free cell way back when.
So 20 years ago, the top 20 companies are completely different than right now top 20 companies. Meaning, it's really hard to guess a company for the long run. So that's why you buy indexes, if you want to play it safer.
None of the 20 from 30 years ago are on the present list. None. Zero. There were then 6 U.S. companies on the list, and their names are familiar to you. We have General Electric, we have Exxon, we have IBM Corp. I mean, they're still around. Merck is down there at number. None made it to the list 30 years later, zero.
So in this picture, the balls are actually the same color. This is an illusion. Yeah, not all mammals are warm-blooded. There are some mammals that are not completely warm-blooded, and the other way around.
You know, we tend to think of endothermic and ectothermic animals as two sides of a coin, as if you're one or the other. But we're discovering exceptions all the time. Some sharks can maintain a body temperature higher than the water that they live in, and so can other fish like the opa, and the tuna can too. And the hedgehog tenrec, an adorable little mammal found in Madagascar, is essentially ectothermic, or cold-blooded when it's not breeding. Their temperatures can plummet to -2 degrees Celsius without lasting damage. So warm and cold-blooded is a spectrum, not a red and blue binary.
Global warming also increases allergies too. So let's stop global warming, XD.
Change from cold to warm. That used to mean spring is here, time for love. But as winters get warmer, spring temperature rises aren't as dramatic, so many species take more time to recognize the season change. This ultimately means species that normally bloom at different times all start spitting out pollen at once, which results in more allergens in the air. That's why we're seeing an 18% higher probability of developing hay fever symptoms in places with later spring blooms, as compared to a 14% higher probability in places where spring now starts earlier. Though it's an increase either way. And it's not just rising temperatures throwing pollen seasons off kilter. It turns out that carbon dioxide itself, the main driver of climate change, also lends a hand. More CO2 boosts photosynthesis, the process plants use to get the energy needed to build more of themselves. Regardless of temperature changes, most species of plant mature faster and grow bigger and sturdier when there's more carbon dioxide in the air. And experiments have found that even though plants in high CO2 don't grow more flowers, the flowers they do grow end up producing more pollen. If atmospheric levels of carbon dioxide keep rising as projected, research suggests that allergenic species may produce up to 200% more pollen by the end of this century. And just in case that wasn't bad enough, CO2 can also make the pollen itself pack more of an allergenic punch. For example, at higher concentrations of carbon dioxide, the notorious ragweeds pack more AmA1, one of their main allergens, into their pollen grains. And overall, researchers estimate that the concentration of AmA1 in pollen has risen by about 20% since pre-industrial days, and will rise another 60% by 2050.
You know how we have like 8 billion people, almost 8 billion people in the earth? Yeah, the very thing that allows us to have that many people, chemical fertilizers, is kind of slowly killing the whole world.
And so those essential amino acids, not only are they important like the vowels, they also can't be made by the human body. So those 9 have to come from your food chain somewhere. And it turns out that they are only made by the bacteria, the fungi, and the plants. You don't have a shikimate pathway in your human cells. And so these essential amino acids are blocked through the shikimate pathway by Roundup. And so imagine treating a food chain with a chemical that blocks the ability of these plants to make the building blocks for a healthy human body. Mm-hmm. Forget about a human, it's a dog, a cat, any mammal, any complex multicellular biology is going to depend on these essential amino acids.
There's this game called Devil May Cry 5. I didn't play it. It's suggested to be good. There's Crack Dante in it. Crack Dante. And a character reads poems to you when he's fighting. It's cool.
Powers of folly are measured by the clock, but of wisdom, no clock can measure. God.
Only 85% of adults have drunk alcohol in their life. 85. I would imagine higher.
85% of adults have drank alcohol in their life. It's an extremely popular drug that decreases specific neuronal excitation in your brain with biological byproducts that have a huge impact on your body.
There's something called hemispheric sleep, and it is when half of your brain is awake, so let's say the left half, and the right half is sleeping. And there are some animals that actually do this.
Awake, while the other is in deep sleep. Take bottlenose dolphins. Their breathing is consciously controlled and they must surface for air every few minutes or they'll drown. When they have a newborn calf, they must actually swim non-stop for weeks in order to keep it safe. So, dolphins sleep unihemispherically, with just one hemisphere at a time. This allows them to continue swimming and breathing while snoozing.
Butterflies are really efficient at flying. And also they are not real too.
Researchers first described wing clapping in insect flight more than 50 years ago, but this cupped clapping method is much more advanced than scientists ever imagined. It helps the butterflies take off very quickly to escape a predator, and it makes them 28% more efficient at flying than if their wings were rigid and couldn't cup.
Technically, you can breathe out of your butt.
Yes, that's right. Mammals can breathe out of their butts. Technically out of their intestine.
Migraine headaches affect 33% of women and 13% of men in their lifetimes. And it is suggested that females have more hormonal fluctuations than males, and that's one of the reasons that migraine headaches are more common in women.
Migraines are as common as they are diverse, affecting as many as 33% of women and 13% of men in their lifetimes.
So TRex are horizontal, not vertical.
past. The first T-Rex skeletons were actually mounted this way, and nobody questioned it for a long time. But the discovery of new fossils and a renewal of interest in the 1970s led to a so-called dinosaur renaissance, which transformed how we see these ancient creatures. Scientists reanalyzed the skeleton of T-Rex and saw that it was much more likely to have a horizontal spine with its back flat and its tail in the air. After this, museum skeletons were remounted, illustrations were updated in science books, and even popular films like Jurassic Park showed T-Rex as an agile, crouching hunter.